Welcome to another edition to Let's Talk with Marcel. You know, sometimes when I get a guest that starts to really blow your mind, it's a guest that is so amazing, so multidimensional, that you start to say, wow, does that come out of Connecticut? And this next guest, a wonderful woman, is the reigning Mrs. Connecticut 2018. I can't wait till you get to meet her. Please welcome Mrs. Teresa Ladopoulos-Nakouzi, 2018 Mrs. Connecticut. Teresa, let's talk. How are you?
You make me feel like a celebrity,
You
Marcel.
are a celebrity.
Oh, I'm very proud to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, this is great. So we've got a lot to talk about, and we're going to go through lots of different questions. The biggest question is, where did you grow up?
Oh, I'm very proud of my hometown of Prospect, Connecticut.
Okay.
The best small town in Connecticut.
Yeah.
That's the nickname.
I like Prospect. There's Route 69 goes through there, right?
Yes,
And there's like, when you're going up that hill from Waterbury into Prospect, there's a water, what is that, like a place where they
You're
make
talking
sure they...
about East Mountain Reservoir?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I had Italian family members that lived right in that area.
Yeah, it's and that, I love that, just the look of it as you're coming up that hill. Prospect is a pretty cool place. Very cool. So when you grew up there, what was it like?
Oh, life back then was pretty simple as compared to now. I mean, we had 5 acres of land in Prospect, and I used to ride my 12-speed bike with my twin brother up and down the hills, even on Route 68. I don't know what I was thinking. And we had, plenty of woods to explore, and it was a real neighborhood that I grew up in.
Now, interesting, you just said something. You're a twin. So what is your brother? Is he into pageantry or anything?
Well, I don't know if he's ever even considered it. Right now, he's working on his almost 30th year working for Federal Express.
Wow. Great.
And we were very close growing up.
Yeah. And so is your mom and dad still alive?
So my mom is still alive, and she relocated from Prospect, which was pretty devastating to all of us, and she moved to Vero Beach in Florida.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, it's a beautiful area,
Yeah.
and much warmer.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, not like right now. Connecticut is probably warmer than anywhere else in America.
When you compare.
But that's amazing. So you're a Prospect person, grew up in Prospect, and then how did you get to become a teacher? Because you're a teacher.
I am. My parents always believed in volunteering. They believed that the easiest way to find a helping pair of hands was just to look at your own arms. And that's what we did all of our lives. We grew up in a very close Greek Orthodox community. Our church was in Waterbury. And when we started entering into the educational field within the church, and that meant, teaching the youngsters, my dad and I really spearheaded the education program there. So he became supervisor, and I was teacher, director for many, many years. So after experiencing a certain skill set that I happen to have to be able to teach children, I decided to turn it into a career, and it worked for me.
Wow. So even like before getting like certified as a teacher, you were teaching younger kids because your dad was involved in this whole volunteer thing?
Yes, my dad and my mom. So what better role models? And the children love it. I love it. And it's great to be very educated and knowledgeable about your church. And then when I had the opportunity to explore education in college and then learn how to teach basic skills, I wouldn't say it was, the teaching bug that bit me. It was more of a crocodile.
Well,
it really took hold.
that is really cool. So you got sort of your basic training from religious education.
That's
from
it.
Getting all the kids involved and then getting that feel. I think that's something, wouldn't you think that it'd be something that if someone wants to become an educator, that might be something to do?
Give it a try, because there's no judgment, and churches really appreciate anybody who really just shows up. But anybody who has talents, to teach others about facts and teach others about religion or sort of philosophies, is more than welcome in churches.
Wow, well, that's really cool. So you are multidimensional. I read some of your bio and what you've done. You teach in Woodbridge.
I've been there for a while.
And you've been teaching in Woodbridge for how many years now?
Going on 22 years.
22.
There.
And what type of teacher are you?
I'm certified as a professional educator, and that's grades 1 through 8. And I began in grade 3 and then shifted to grade 2 for many, many years. And along the way, I gained a certification as a reading specialist.
Wow.
So I had the reading specialist certification for a while, but there were no positions open. Once a position became open, I decided to leave the classroom, which was a very hard decision, and choose this position, which is a wonderful position. But I love both.
So you're no longer like standing in front of a classroom. You're working with children individually?
It could be one-on-one, like you said, or it could be small groups of children, or it could be a whole class as well, because sometimes we do whole class lessons. But you're right, I don't have the same responsibilities as a classroom teacher does. And I give kudos to any educator out there. In this day and age, the demands are incredible on classroom teachers.
Well, it's amazing because you also were the Woodbridge District School System Teacher of the Year in 2006.
Yes.
So what was that like?
There was nobody more surprised than I was. I always felt, a certain passion for doing things beyond just my job. So becoming involved with some committees, you get to meet, your colleagues, and you get to know them very well. And when that honor came around, that sends you up to the state of Connecticut for a very special ceremony where all teachers of the years are recognized. And then from that pool of candidates, they choose one to represent the whole state, which is quite an honor.
Wow, that must have been cool.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, because there's a lot of great educators.
There sure are. You feel very unworthy at the time when you receive that plaque and the certificate. And for me, it just made me want to work harder. It made me want to do things like begin a reading to a dog program or a peer mentoring program. So it seems that when I receive something that acknowledges work that I do, it just inspires me to want to do more.
Interesting enough, you said reading to a dog program. Tell me a little bit about that. What is that all about?
The first dog that I encountered that I considered for a reading dog program, I met at Louis' Lunch right in New Haven.
Okay, the famous
That's
hamburger
right.
place.
I saw a man walk in with a dog. I asked him what was he doing with the dog. He told me it was a therapy dog. And I said, could that dog ever come into my school and read with children? And he said, I've been dying to get into a school system. So I said, well, consider this an invitation. So 6 years later, we were reading with Remy. When they moved out to California, I overheard a conversation because I'm a student council advisor. I heard one of my members talking about her dog becoming certified. So I asked her if her family would be willing to bring in their dog. They said yes, and then 3 years after that, we're still using that reading to a dog program.
Now, tell me a little bit. So the dog comes in, and of course there's how many children around?
Depends on the group. I really don't want to overwhelm the dog, so there could be up to 5 or 6.
Okay,
children
and then
there.
so the dog sits there,
Yes.
next to his handler,
Right.
right? And then you start to read while the dog is there. Now, do the kids get to pet the dog while you're reading, or how does that all work?
There's a little training involved, so I tell the children, you need to pick out a few books. So it's actually the children reading to the dog.
Oh, their children read to
Oh,
them.
yes, yes, yes. So anytime they can get a chance to, practice their fluency, practice their sight words, oh, it's perfect with a dog because a dog doesn't give any comment. A dog will just lick you and accept, however you're reading. But I train the students, pick out a few books. You can even choose books about cats.
Mm-hmm.
The dog won't mind that. And read it beforehand. So when the dog is there, the children will circle around. I'll introduce the owner and the dog to them, and they'll have a chance to pet the dog. This current dog that we're working with, her name is Annie. So they'll spend some time with Annie, petting her, and then I'll say, okay, you can take out your books. And we don't read one at a time. Children are reading simultaneously with each other. But in between, they're petting the dog and they're feeling very relaxed. And I have to tell you, there was one child who would read with a stutter. And when he read with Annie, his fluency was on point. So relaxed. So it's really magical.
Wow, it sounds
read with a
magical.
dog.
The one thing about dogs, I wish more people were like dogs, because dogs do not criticize or talk. They listen. And so the children are actually reading to the dog and the dog's listening, and it's helping them with their self-esteem
It does.
because they can pronounce the words. They don't have to worry about if they don't pronounce their words correctly, but they want to because it's exciting for them. I think this is a great program. And what's that program called?
Reading with Annie.
Okay,
is
it's
what
Reading with Annie.
It's Reading with Annie.
But you called it Canine Reading Program?
So it is a canine reading
Now,
program.
is this a national thing or just something you came up with?
I'm pretty sure there are nationally recognized programs out there with curriculum to follow, but this is more informal.
Okay.
And the kids are so motivated that once they read with Annie, they want to pick out a book and read again. And hopefully there is no criticizing, like you were saying, going on in terms of, if kids are mispronouncing words with adults. I think our approach to how children are reading is more strategic now than it's ever been. We're complimenting students on using strategies. We're complimenting their remembering of a story so that they could retell it. It's more positive than ever. So
That's very encouraging and wonderful. I mean, so I know that literacy is part of your action plan. Is that what it's called? With Mrs. America and Miss Connecticut? Or is it just for Miss America? Because now I want to find out about Mrs. Connecticut 2018, which you are the reigning Mrs. Connecticut 2018. So you just got crowned. So what does this crown look like? You have it here?
Well, I actually have it right here.
Let me see. What is that like?
So the winning of the crown and the sash that goes along with it carries for me a lot of responsibility, and it's really the responsibility of service. So I knew that if I were lucky enough to be crowned, and that was based on an interview process, on paperwork, it was based on an evening gown, it was based on onstage question and a swimsuit portion. I knew that once I would, if I could receive this crown, I would just hit the ground running with continuing with my service to the community, because I'm very, very involved with many organizations that I worked on prior to Mrs. Connecticut.
Okay.
And I've kept up with those connections for Mrs. Connecticut, and some have a literacy connection and some do not. And I'll be using all of that, all of those networking and relationships and experiences and taking them out to Las Vegas for Mrs. America.
Right. So Las Vegas, the end of August, Mrs. America 2018. So I guess the word I was looking for was platform. So is literacy your platform?
Literacy is my platform.
Oh.
It's not only what I do for a living, but it's also a passion. I am that person that will sit at a restaurant and create a 16-page paper napkin, tutorial for a mom who's very worried about her child's reading. I do literacy, I practice literacy beyond just my job because I love it.
So what are some of the other groups that you, or groups that you've been involved with, or different platforms, I guess?
Habitat for Humanity is one that I'm involved with, and they have exciting events coming up, and when I attend their groundbreaking ceremonies or their dedication ceremonies, it is so moving because you have, again, volunteers who are actually building homes for people to live and make a life out of. It's canine first responders that I'm also very connected with. I have them as guests coming into my school so that children can learn about how canines help people like police officers and firemen and women to de-escalate from a very stressful situation. There are organizations like that out there. So I was able to connect with canine first responders. And the Make-A-Wish Foundation I'm involved with. Reach Out and Read is another organization that I'm newly involved with since Mrs. Connecticut. And these are all very highly educated, wonderful people who are doing significant work in the areas of literacy or in the areas of humanity.
Fabulous. That is really amazing. So now that you're Mrs. Connecticut 2018, do you have any future goals of what you want to do?
Well, one of the goals is to make sure that I keep my husband very happy, because I can honestly say without his support, I could really do nothing. I really need him for every step of the way. He's a partner. He's someone that I absolutely rely on through all of the events that have been going on, and he helps me make future decisions. My future going forward is just to continue with my service to the community in any way that I can help promote literacy or help promote volunteerism. That's my goal.
Well, interesting you say that, because the key to literacy is reading. But there's a new definition to literacy. The ability to use language, numbers, images, computers, and other basic means to understand communication, to communicate, to gain useful knowledge, solve mathematical problems, and to use the dominant symbol systems. Can you tell me, how can this generation struggle with all the different types of imagery, symbols, languages, cultures with literacy today?
What's really important is for parents to understand that by the age of 3, a child really needs so much exposure to vocabulary. And without that exposure, it really sort of impacts success in school. It impacts building foundational skills. So the program that I'm involved with, I think I mentioned it, the Reach Out and Read, they provide books for parents at a pediatrician's office, starting from the age of 6 months all the way up into 6 years old. And it's that exposure to one-on-one reading, side-by-side reading, that is so very important for children. Children need exposure to language. They need to hear words. They need to see words over and over again. Because 1 out of 4 children within the United States could grow up to be functionally illiterate. And that was another reason why I pursued literacy as a platform. it's really important for parents to be involved with their children from an early age. And when I'm at school and we're talking to the new kindergarten parents that are coming in for the first time, we really stress how important it is to read books and to play number games, because like you said, literacy and numeracy are linked together. There is no way you can solve a mathematical problem if you can't read. And that we find from first grade going all the way up the years, all the way into high school. You really need a good foundation in reading to be able to problem solve.
Well, I like this, where you're going with this, especially providing books to parents. But many parents can't read. More than half of the Americans in the United States do not have enough ability to read to actually understand their own health care information. Do you know that it costs America over $230 billion a year in healthcare costs because patients cannot read their healthcare information? So what can be done to help parents learn to read? If they can't read, how can they teach their children how to read?
There's adult education classes. There are volunteers who will work with adults. You know, I mean, adults have to take responsibility too. I know, I saw that same statistics. I mean, over $200 billion in healthcare costs, which is astronomical. And illiteracy affects the economy. It affects our country. So, what can help adults? They have to be aware, and then they have to be open to learning the language.
Do you think literacy is a human right?
Oh, I believe it is. I mean, if you have a basic understanding of your native language, then all of your decisions will be beneficial for you and your family and your country. It is a right, but unfortunately, if you are low income, I mean, you could have maybe one book per 300 children in a low income type of city or economy, as opposed to a middle and upper income family, which might have a family that has, 13 books per child. It really should be a human right.
It's amazing. Literacy is essential for lifelong living and learning and social change. But literacy has also been used as a method of social control and oppression. So when you're talking about one book for 300 kids, and throughout the years of our country, in much of the history of our country, the ability to read was something only as a privilege to upper class white men, where they were the only ones allowed to learn. School wasn't free like it is now. You're lucky as a teacher to provide education from tax dollars and the public school system. Education was provided only to a select few, and then this was a preserved way of preserving the class system, to keep the poor powerless and only a select few. And this preserved class structure that we had largely left out the poor people from education. Educating women simply was not a priority until the early 1900s. And did you know that until 1960, it was very rare for women to go to college in this country? So, what is your thoughts on the ideas of providing literacy to a greater abundance of people that are less fortunate.
I'm sure glad that it was recognized that all people deserve, men, women, children. I'm sure glad it was recognized that everybody deserves an education and deserves to learn basic skills and how to care for yourself and have your basic needs met. And I think our country is doing a better and better job at doing that. I failed to mention New Haven Reads as another organization that I started to get involved with, and they are working with exactly those target areas, pockets of children that need to be brought up, their levels need to be brought up, and volunteers are men and women from surrounding areas, and they're doing it a little bit at a time. It's working.
Well, that is important for many facets. One is that it's a pressing challenge in education, I think, with the instruction of literacy to migrant people, the people that have come in as immigrants in this country, that they already may be literate in their country, but now they have to relearn new language, a new culture, a new way of looking. They may know mathematics, may know computers, but now, so there's this whole migrant English language learners program. Have you heard about that?
Oh, it's a law to provide education to English learners. They used to be called ELL, the children, but now it's English learners. And they are provided with an excellent education. Within all school districts, it's pretty mandatory that an English language teacher be available for those students. And these are highly, highly trained professionals who go through a rigorous education in order to become certified as EL teachers. And there's a nationwide test that's given to these students to determine what level of proficiency they have. And again, it's taught by very highly skilled teachers.
Well, as a teacher, what do you hope your students see and learn from your accomplishments?
I hope they remain curious, because that was something that led me to all of what I've been doing really in my life, I guess, but especially for the Mrs. Connecticut America. Just stay curious, always be thinking, what if? What if I chose science as a career? Or what if I devoted my life to protecting animals? Or what if I did use math to create an invention? That's what I hope they leave with. I hope they're inspired to always be curious, just like I am.
That is amazing. Curiosity has created some amazing things. The man on the moon. Mathematics to get the man on the moon, to develop the computer, and all those accomplishments that others have had, all comes from dreaming and curiosity. So I think that's a really great point. What can you tell others that want to follow in your footsteps? Like, if they want to become Mrs. Connecticut or Miss Connecticut or anything like that, or even a teacher or a mom, because you're a mom of two children, which is amazing. They are people. And so what would you tell others, that want to follow in your footsteps?
Again, it comes down to those two words, why not or what if. Just give it a try, be positive. And I think, if more people were positive than negative, I think, there could be many more accomplishments that people have, but people hold themselves back. And I was almost, not going to pursue this, and then then again, with the support of my husband and my family, I thought, okay, I'll give this a try. They have to stay positive, give it a chance. And if you're going for something like a title and you don't win the crown or the sash, you still get, a boost, a shot of confidence right in your arm. You still get that because you've been introduced to many, many people, and you've created friendships that will last, hopefully, a lifetime. You will gain more confidence. So give it a try, whether it's teaching or becoming a scientist or chasing after a pageant. Just try it and stay positive.
Well, what was the turning point in your life that gave you that confidence to do that? That one moment that just said, oh, like, why did you come up with taking on the responsibility of becoming Mrs. Connecticut 2018? I mean, was there a turning point in your life?
I've always been, again, very appreciative of opportunities. And opportunities had just been coming my way for so long. And then two women, very accomplished women, approached my husband and myself and, proposed this opportunity. And again, I was very curious about it. And I thought, if I don't do something like this now, that would give me the opportunity to talk about literacy, to talk about humanity. If I don't take this now, I'll never know if it's something that, I could be successful in doing.
Well, Teresa Ladopoulos-Nakouzi, you are an amazing, multifaceted woman. You are a mentor, a teacher. You have been an inspiration to me because this whole platform of literacy and volunteerism and all the things that you've done to accomplish where you are today and where you are going to go, because I see the universe through your eyes. It's beautiful. It is amazing. So I just wanted to let everybody know out there that you too can take on this part of your life by just taking one curious moment. Just take that one time and say, why not? Why can't I do that? And you should do it. Strive for it. Make that effort. Teresa Ladopoulos-Nakouzi, thank you so much for being a guest here on Let's Talk, and thank you